checking her social media, constantly looking to see what she's doing, fellas, responding to the I miss you messages, hoping for closure. A lot of toxic relationships from my practice, they have really extreme emotional infatuation early on, where you haven't really known each other that much, but you're already kind of telling each other, I love you. It's already been like 2 weeks. Hey guys, welcome to my channel, Man Up Mental Health. I'm Randy Wineglass, LMFT in the state of California and Florida. This video is going to be on breaking toxic relationship patterns, how to escape toxic relationships, and to end these relationships in a healthy way. I'm going to be really reading some bullet points here from my computer. So, men in toxic relationships are over 2 times more likely to experience depression, anxiety, and substance abuse. This is from the Journal of Men's Health. So just being in a toxic relationship, fellas, places you at risk for having unnatural states of stress, mood, states where you're feeling sad, hopeless, helpless, worthless. And a lot of times this again is the product misstepping or misaligning with your core values. We talk a lot about core values, and when you're not aligned with those values, you're more than likely over-identified with your thoughts and feelings of the situation, which are based on conditions, temporary, and they may not always be accurate pictures of what's going on, okay? So here it talks about most men internalize their pain, they don't talk about it. In this video, I'll show you how to stop letting a toxic ex control your emotions, peace, and your power, even if she's no longer in your life. This is not uncommon in my work, in my practice, where guys are leaving relationships and they're still on the fence of, should I still keep sleeping with her? The sex was so good, man. I know we were toxic, we were fighting and arguing and, all these different dynamics, but, I don't want to let her go, or I don't like being alone, doc. What can I do? So we'll talk about in this video what you should do. We're going to define toxic relationship. A toxic relationship is a pattern where one or both partners are consistently engage in behaviors that are extremely emotionally hurtful. Manipulation, guilt tripping, control, criticism, passive aggression, or emotional neglect. It's not just about arguments. It's about repeated patterns that drain your peace. These patterns are like, repetition. They just keep coming up over and over again. They erode your confidence and confuse your reality. This is where you see a lot of cases of gaslighting, where you're trying to speak your truth and assert your needs, and they're like, hey, that doesn't really sound right, or you're inaccurate. You're really the problem, dude. It's really you. You hear this a lot back in the day that, men were dogs, right? It's the dog getting me. You hear that a lot. So we kind of internalize that narrative where, usually popular belief would tell you it's the man that's usually always the toxic one, or unhealthy in the relationship. Now you're starting to see the playing field a little bit level. Either way, guys, it's not good for either party to be toxic. So men are often told just to get over it, instead of being supported in their healing. A lot of times when men are in a toxic relationship, they're just kind of expected to bite the bullet. We're looking at you like, hey, well, you got yourself in that situation. What are you going to do about it? And this can leave men kind of feeling a little bit invalidated. So the video isn't just about moving on. It's about healing, reclaiming your identity, and rebuilding your self-worth after a toxic ex. The emotional aftermath is real. The relationship may be over, but the psychological residue lingers. You start to replay arguments in your mind. You're questioning your memory or your worth, feeling shame or guilt. You lose your sense of stability. Men are less likely to label it as abuse. You'll see some guys in the most unhealthy relationships, and they're just not even sure on if it's abuse or if this is just how things are. It's not uncommon when you're going to go tell your guys, right, what's going on, fellas, and they're just like, hey, man, I'm kind of dealing with the same thing. And because there was no hitting, it's easy to dismiss the emotional manipulation. Toxic cycles continues after the breakup. Let's just stay friends, checking her social media, constantly looking to see what she's doing, fellas, responding to the I miss you messages, hoping for closure. A lot of toxic relationships from my practice, they have really extreme emotional infatuation early on, where you haven't really known each other that much, but you're already kind of telling each other, I love you. It's already been like 2 weeks and you're probably sleeping together, things like that. Why it matters. You can't heal in the same space that harmed you. Say it again. You can't heal in the same space that harmed you. Action steps: block the number. All right. I know it's going to be hard for some of you guys because it was a big ego boost. That was where your value was, right? Even though it was toxic. And that's a really good measure to indicate how aligned you are with your value is that if you're in a toxic situation and you're still chasing after it, you've made that toxicity your value. Okay. And we go where the value is. Behavior tends to follow what's important. Okay. Unfollow her, mute her socials, delete old texts or photos. Would you leave the door open for a fire that already burned down your house? All right. Something to think about. Brotherhood and real support. Men isolate, don't heal that way. Talk to a therapist, a coach, or a mentor. There's plenty of resources on psychology today. I have my growth therapy link up. You guys can tap into my practice. I'm getting new clients every day. There's plenty of other therapists out there. Okay, I'm not the only one. Maybe my fit may not match your style. So connecting to a therapist, a mentor, a social worker, whoever, psychologist, psychiatrist who can connect with you, your father, your uncle, your cousins, things like that, even your mom. Ask yourself, who in my life sees me beyond my pain and my performance? If you have a cycle of being in a toxic relationship, it's not uncommon if you go to family members and they're like, dude, this is kind of your pattern. What else is new, right? You know what to do. You know better. The information, the advice gets short when you've been kind of in this over and over again for the long term. The advice gets short when your toxic patterns are long. God, you know what to do. Get over it. Here you go again. That type of thing. Self-repair through purpose. Shift your energy from her to you. Focus on your core values. What's important to you now in this new step as you're transitioning out of this relationship. Rebuild your routine. Maybe you got to stop going to that CVS you used to go to or that Walmart that you used to shop at. Unfortunately, I've seen situations where guys may have worked with their girl or their partner. They might have met her at the work. This is why it's not good a lot of times to meet people at your jobs, because now if you guys break up and if it was a toxic connection, guess what? You still got to clock in unless you're going to give up your career, right? I had a situation like this with a story time. Had a situation like this with a close friend. Broke up with a toxic partner. She ends up trying to get a job at his job. We all have to survive, right, guy? No guys, no judgment there. But now you're in a dynamic. You're panicking. You're talking to HR. Man, is she going to get in here? What's going on? And, not really sure if she got the job or not, but he was panicking, guys. So really be careful about where you rest at. You tend to plant your seeds of desire, right? Not really sure if your workplace is the greatest fertile soil that you want to plant in. Start a meaningful goal or a project. Sometimes guys just don't have nothing going on. No goals, no objectives to look for. When you don't have a goal or a purpose, pleasure becomes that much more rewarding, right? You want to have a goal or objective in your life where your focus and emphasis is not so much on pleasure. Daily tools, 10 minutes of empowering content. Just give yourself 10 minutes, guys. Watching affirmations. Sometimes I even refer people to stoicism content, men's mental health, men empowerment. Whether it's your faith, go look at a pastor, look at a mentor, look at a speaker who's reading scripture, right? Things of that nature. 10 minutes of empowerment. 3 small wins written down each night. What are 3 wins that you have in a day? I woke up this morning isn't enough. That's a blessing. That's great and all. But, what is something that you actually did that worked out for you? Maybe there was a bill that you was behind on and you paid it off. Maybe you were able to save a certain amount of money. Maybe you were able to go out and help someone, right? Or be of service to someone. And commit to habits that rebuild your identity. This is where your value system is, where before the relationship and the interaction was the all important, all priority, right? I love this girl, man. I'm crazy about her, man. I just don't know what to do, right? That real anxiety, anxious attachment, mindset shift. You're not proving her wrong. You're proving yourself right. Okay, make that the focus. Had a story of a guy I knew named Andre, 2-year relationship full of emotional highs and lows. She cheated and blamed him, right? And he almost stayed to fix the relationship. Breakthrough moment. I spent so long trying to be chosen by her, so he used to tell me I forgot to choose me or choose me. Man, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, man. It's a really great mindset. What he did, blocked all contact with her. He joined a hiking group, got out in nature, started journaling, and became a source of healing for other men. Healing isn't just breaking up with a toxic ex or a toxic partner, it's waking up. Okay, key takeaways. Toxic is patterns that damage your emotional safety. If you guys start noticing that more often than not you're having some unhealthy patterns happening in your relationship, you're fighting, you're screaming at each other, you're throwing things, people are looking at you like you're crazy because you're out there lashing and showing out, let that be a sign that you might be in a toxic situation. Breakup is the start of recovery, not the finish line. Cut off the access completely. Lean into real male support. Rebuild your identity through routine and purpose. Final reminder, this isn't about being bitter. It's about being better, all right? Clear, stronger, and grounded the way that you are now. So for the viewer who's watching, something that your toxic ex taught you, how are you healing from it? And also watch the next video on how to rebuild your self-worth after an emotional trauma, because your past doesn't define your next. Like, subscribe, share this video. This video isn't over. More information on how to rebuild your self-worth next. All right, guys. Thank you for watching Randy Wineglass. Peace.